Well, to the US now, and the tensions continue around the highly politicised Roe versus Wade case before the Supreme Court, who will soon hand down a decision on the contentious issue of abortion rights. The issue has, brought out all the extremists on every side of the debate, though it is the shrill protesters of the left who have threatened a Supreme Court judge's home and vandalised churches. The latest, a pregnancy services clinic in Asheville, North Carolina, has been spray painted with the threatening message, "If abortions aren't safe, neither are you." Windows were busted too, according to a news release. For more on this, I'm joined live from North Carolina by Sky News US correspondent Annelise Nielsen. Annelise, great to see you. How are you?
Yeah, good. Enjoying a bit of North Carolina warmth. It's nice to get out of DC, but yeah, things are really heating up in the Roe versus Wade debate.
Great. So tell us about it. What's happening on the ground where you are?
So, look, we came to North Carolina for a few different reasons. This is obviously going to have an impact across the country when Roe versus Wade decision's handed down. It's anticipated from that leak that it's going to be overturned, and so this is going to be the biggest change to abortion rights access since the 1970s. But it's a very different landscape now than what it was. North Carolina in particular is going to have an estimated 50-fold increase in women whose closest access to any termination service is in North Carolina, because so many of the southern states are ready to put in laws that completely ban it altogether. But this is what's going to happen. It's going to go back to the states, and that's the big question of what happens on the ground. It's up to those state legislatures to decide what the state wants to do. So North Carolina still has access, but somewhat restricted. We've spent time at this pregnancy crisis centre. Now, these are highly controversial clinics that they put forward a pro-life approach, and they're absolutely hated by Planned Parenthood and other abortion providers. And this has gotten so febrile, this entire debate across the United States in anticipation of this being handed down. As you saw there just a moment ago, there's been about 30 clinics across the country targeted by pro-choice activists. And even the debate around that, we've been following commentary here. People have said, oh, these clinics are doing it to themselves to try and get attention, trying to make themselves the victims. Then the pro-choice clinics have said, we have a long history of being targeted. And it's true. There's been 11 murders attached to different abortion clinics across the United States. God. And so everyone's sitting on the edge of their seat, waiting to see what happens when the Supreme Court hands down this decision.
And what, Annelise, has the Biden administration been doing? Have they been trying to hose down the temperature? They've been fueling it? What's Joe Biden and his gang been up to?
Well, it seems like they were caught on the hop like just about everyone else when the Supreme Court leak happened, because we cannot emphasise just how unprecedented that is. And we're seeing balustrades around the Supreme Court complex, 2 layers of fencing, because they're so afraid. There's multiple death threats against the Supreme Court justices. They've had their houses picketed, the conservative justices, that is. And we're seeing just this absolute fear. It's likely that they'll drop this at the very last moment so they can get out of town and get to somewhere safe. This is what the kind of level of intensity we're seeing around this. What the Biden administration has done is not a heck of a lot. There is a lot they could do. They could put forward legislation through the Congress, but they'll be filibustered out of the Senate. They can enact executive orders, and they can do things like there's an increased access to medical terminations. That didn't exist in the Roe versus Wade days, so they could start implementing protections for postal workers, things like that. But everyone's waiting to see exactly what gets handed down, because it is still an unknown.
And just quickly, Annelise, over in Florida, a Miami police officer, a traffic cop, was taken off his beat and assigned to desk duties because he pulled over a black man for not wearing his seatbelt. Here we go again, Annelise.
Look, you know what's interesting is yesterday we were actually out the front of this pregnancy crisis centre speaking to one of the police officers there who was pulling an overtime shift to give 24-hour supervision to it because they're so afraid that they're going to return, as we saw in that threatening message. He said in their local police force they've had 100 police officers leave in the last 2 years. They're desperately underfunded and they're trying to get more people into the job. But there's also this real side to things where that man was filming for a reason. That's the norm now, especially when you're a black man in America, to say, I'm going to film this happening because there have been so many instances of police abusing their power. It has gotten just so febrile with people not being trusting of the local police force. It makes their job harder, and then there's less of them on the ground. And so they're going to quit because of stuff like that. But George Floyd did change a lot, and I've spoken to a lot of activists in that space who've said, yeah, we tell young men film everything, but the point of that is that we have the video, so we can see exactly what's said. It's not the most outrageous comment, and it just shows how polarised everything's gotten. Everyone's so sensitive to every potential slight, and it's just making everyone's jobs harder.
Annelise Nielsen, thanks so much for talking to us and the great job you do there in the States for Sky News Australia. Thanks so much.